Hi, I'm Stuart Broad.
Hey, I'm Mollie King, and we are really, really happy to be supporting working options in education. So, Stuart, you're a cricketer, an England cricketer. What do you think are important characteristics of somebody performing at your level?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think at the top level, you're constantly having things that are pushing you away from your goal, whether that's media, whether it's lack of form, maybe physically you're not feeling as good as you could do. I think the most important thing for my job to be able to perform consistently is having a very clear goal set out by myself to start with, and not letting outward influences almost bang me off the road for that. Don't let things, everything. There's always going to be things that discourage you. Always going to be things that can knock your confidence. But actually, if you've got a very clear end goal, mine might be winning a particular series. It's very easy to brush those sort of things that are trying to drag you off the straight line that you're heading on, because you're very clear at what you want to achieve. So I think as soon as you set a clear goal, an achievable goal, but something that drives you forward every day, um, make it very clear in your mind that you're not going to get pushed off that road. And I think when it's the goal that it really excites you and something that you can really see yourself doing or achieving, there's not much that can get in your way.
You're good at resetting those goals as well, I think, can't you?
Yeah, I think you've always got to analyse and evaluate something that I don't know how many play cricket, but for us, it's quite a stats-driven business. But I think for me that I've got a lot better as a player when I'm not judging myself on how many wickets I've taken that day or how many runs I've scored. I actually judge myself on, did I make a positive impact in that day to my team? Did I create chances for my team? Did I lead in a positive direction? Was my mindset always looking, how could I make a momentum change in the game, rather than focusing on negative things in the day? So rather than setting my goals at particular achievements that I can get in the game, I set them at feelings and things that I can evaluate and analyse at the end of the day, which helps me be happy if stats wise I don't have a good day, which I think allows me to relax a lot easier at night. You've obviously gone from being in a very successful girl band, the Saturdays, to now a radio presenter on BBC Radio 1. Obviously, I know you very well. You suffered and still suffer from dyslexia. Have you found that a stumbling block, a big challenge? Have you overcome that? Can you overcome that?
I think it's one of those things that you don't necessarily overcome. I think, I'm always going to be dyslexic, and it's always going to be something that probably does affect my confidence a little bit. And especially for me, with my dyslexia, I find my reading really hard. I've always been a really slow reader. And especially with radio presenting, a lot of the time I'm reading text from the listeners or reading notes that I need to then say on air and make them sound natural. So it's something that I do constantly practice. And when we're playing a song, then I might read ahead of the text and just check what's happening, so that the minute the mics go up, I'm not being presented with a text for the first time and being a deer in the headlights thinking, oh my gosh, what are all these words saying? So I think it's something that you just have to learn yourself. How do you deal with it? And for me, with my dyslexia, it's about having the words highlighted in a set colour. And I think that whatever career you're going for, there's always going to be parts maybe of a job that you think, oh, I'm maybe not the ideal person for this job because of X, Y, and Z. But I think something that you and I really focus on is the fact that the hard worker gets there in the end as well. I think, obviously natural talent and natural ability is a huge, huge part of a job. But I think that the hard worker in the room is always going to be that person that does succeed, because hard work just gets you such a long way. The person that's sending the extra email, or the person that's making that phone call at the end of the day when everyone else has left the office. I think things like that really do go a long way. I think another big part of our job, which is worth mentioning, especially at a time like now, is how do we try and keep ourselves kind of mentally and physically, especially for you, but how do you keep yourself mentally fit, especially for people when they're trying to find a new career or trying to find a new job? It can be hard, especially, like I said, at a time like now. How do you kind of focus on positive thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing to say on that is we're both very different in how we go about our organisation, aren't we? I'm someone who likes to plan, so I will write lists. I will set a structure of how I like to go about things, because I think that's my way of de-stressing myself, so to speak. So if I know if I've written it down on a piece of paper, it's then off my mind. If I don't, I fall into that habit of thinking I've got to do that at 4 o'clock tomorrow, and I've got to do that at 5 o'clock, and then I sort of can't let anything go. So I tend to write things down and say structured in that way. So that helps me stay mentally organised. But I also find physically, if I do exercise in the morning, I find that helps me mentally, and I don't know if that's the same for you, but I find it gives me energy. If I do something physical, it might be take the dog for a walk, it might be get on the spin bike or go for a run. Pre-work, pre sort of mental work, I feel like that really sort of sets me up for the day. And sometimes, if I don't do it in the morning, I feel like that sort of hangs over me, and I feel a pressure to then do it later in the day, and I feel that gets me down a bit in the day. So I try and get up and do some physical activity early, and I feel that my mood, particularly in this lockdown period, has stayed better for that. I must apologise, having just glanced at the camera for my haircut, that Mollie tried to do a bit of a DIY lockdown haircut.
DIY haircuts,
and
aren't
just,
we?
She put the clips at the wrong length, so it's sort of we cancelled it straight away.
That's why I told you, strict instructions, don't look to the side. Poor Stuart. You are really good at like getting up straight away, being active. I think in lockdown especially, we found that actually getting up earlier has been so beneficial for us. And I know for me, I'm not much of a planner.
But we all need routine.
Yeah,
so I think getting up early gives us a bit of a routine and a structure of how we like to go about it. And I'm very structured, Mol's not so much, but her job and timings, you can't miss the start of a radio show. So your job gives you structure, I suppose.
Yeah, it definitely does. I think when I'm not working necessarily, then everything goes all out the window and I've no structure at all. But we're definitely opposites in that way, I think. I think it works. But I think, our main message is to just keep working really hard. I think the hardest bit for loads of people is actually figuring out what it is that you want to do, because obviously it's such a big decision. But try to not let it bog you down, because I think there's so many people in the same position who are still at a point of trying to figure out what it is that they want to do. And to not worry if, maybe you do pick something and in a couple of years you figure out, actually, I'm going to possibly reinvent myself and go down a different route. I think that's, totally understandable and quite excitable as well. So
don't be scared to fail.
Yeah.
For us in cricket, we try different deliveries, try different things in training. That's what training is for us, to try things, to get it wrong. We might get it wrong for 3 or 4 months to then get it right that might help England win a test match. I think you learn the quickest, you learn the most from making mistakes.
Yeah. And
don't see making a mistake as a failure. Don't see that as a negative. Make a mistake, learn from it, and turn that into a real positive. And try and find. I know it's an easy thing to say, find the positive in everything, but don't get down if you make a mistake. We all make mistakes, but just figure out a way to turn that into a positive and move it forward.
Yeah. Thank you so much for watching, and sending loads of luck. Good luck with whatever it is that you choose to do, and hopefully we'll see you soon. Stay safe.